This year I was experimenting with growing a fall crop of radishes and lettuce to hopefully expand my productive season. I had sown French breakfast and icicle radish seeds about 3 weeks ago on the other side of this bed, and now I was sowing a new batch on this side where these lettuces had been growing up until now. This was in the first week of September, and the lettuce had grown too large and tough and had started to bolt, sending a central flowering spike. It had developed an unpleasant, bitter taste. And since I had no intention of saving lettuce seed this time, and I wanted to make better use of all my growing spaces, I removed the lettuce, sowed the new batch of lettuce and radishes in their place, and chopped and dropped all the remaining organic matter as mulch. We were going through a bit of a dry spell, so I was concerned if the radish and lettuce seeds would have enough moisture to survive the heat of the late summer and early fall. About 2 weeks later, I went to check out on the progress of my fall crops. Mixed results so far with the fall planting. The radishes have grown relatively well. The newer batch I sowed, some of them are dying, I think, but the older one is fine, except for it's been attacked by some kind of a bug. Whatever it is, it appears to be the same issue I had with arugula earlier this year. It's not something I've experienced in my last garden, so I'm a little bit thrown off as to what to do. If it is flea beetles, they're more persistent than the ones I was accustomed to dealing with. But there's another troubling sign, and that's the lettuce. They basically all died, the ones that had sprouted, the few that had sprouted, and the ones that hadn't sprouted didn't. We've been having crazy weather swings. There has been a few weeks that were very much cooler, and I thought, oh, fall has arrived, and then we're back to 90 degrees. And that's terrible news for lettuce and radishes. So I'm not putting too much faith on this batch of radishes. It may be that I might just have to take it out if it doesn't even form a root. I've been watering it here and there because the rain has not been consistent, and with the high temperatures I had to hand water it. First time I'm hand watering the whole garden, because in spring everything was so much in a regular schedule of rain. There was actually too much rain at one point, so everything that I sowed directly grew well. Of course, if I had continued with my usual method of raising seedlings in pots and then transplanting when they're big enough, I might not be having this issue. But because I'm trying to plant things directly more often, I've struggled here, and you can see why it's a good thing to start seedlings in a controlled manner. It makes your gardening life much more reliable. That being said, I got very enthusiastic earlier in the year because I basically planted everything else except for the tomatoes directly. And as you can see, the collards are doing really well right now, especially after I've gotten the hang of how to deal with the caterpillars. And the beans, the okra, everything is doing phenomenal. What I'm gonna do is sow once more and see what happens. Hopefully fall arrives and we have cooler temperatures and enough of a growing season to harvest things. My previous first sowing of fall radishes and lettuce had happened in the end of August, technically in the height of summer, and the radishes were showing good signs of development. Maybe that meant that a fall crop had to be sown in summer still. But the lettuce had struggled, while several of the lettuce seeds had sprouted together with the radish. After a few rainy days in mid-August, hot, dry weather had cemented the forecast in recent weeks. While I had been watering here and there, it was not a systematic approach, and slowly I saw the lettuce seedlings withering away one by one after hot afternoons. But I was willing to try direct sowing once more. Would I be successful with my fall garden? We will find out right after this commercial. If you're loving the video and would like to help me produce more, you can purchase an original painting from my Etsy shop or support me through Patreon. Your direct support is the reason why I have been able to produce 2 episodes a week during the spring, so thank you. When fall actually arrived and the first frost came, I decided to take stock of my fall garden experiment. The radishes did well, but I show that in detail in another video linked in the cards. But I was learning a few things. So here are some thoughts about growing a garden in the fall. You have to be very mindful of timing. And I've grown here radish, and I attempted to grow lettuce. The radish has grown. The first ones that I've sown close to the end of summer are faring the best. Then I sowed some later, and there was a bit of drought, so they didn't sprout as evenly. And then finally I sowed some close to a few weeks before the frost, and they're still growing, but I have my doubts as to if they're going to be able to grow successfully before deep winter sets in and there's not enough light for them to grow and it's too cold, and then they end up dying. The ones that were grown in late summer are faring the best. Their bulbs are growing, or their roots are growing larger, and they're still crisp and edible. So I'm really happy to find that out. I've never really tried growing them in fall, and now I see that the best time to grow radish is in fall, because they really don't want to bolt. The day length is just too long for it to encourage flowering, so they put all their energy in the bulb, which is the part that we want. In any case, the lettuce has really struggled. Direct sowing the lettuce at the end of summer is a disaster. It's either too hot or too dry. At least we experienced some drought. It doesn't work as well as in the beginning of summer. I should have grown them from cups as I usually do, so there you go. I will plant some spinach right now as a test, and if it sprouts and if it grows, then I'll know, yeah, spinach should be grown in winter. I doubt that's going to be the case here because winter can be a bit harsh. Not as harsh as in other places, obviously, but still too harsh for spinach and other greens. But time will tell, and I'm glad that I'm learning a little bit more about growing in fall and winter. Unlike spring-grown radishes that either bolt fast and never produce a bulb, or tend to become woody and pithy, as well as super spicy as the days heat up around June, my fall radishes grew bigger, more tender, and juicy roots, with overall better taste. They had even survived the heat and dryness of the early days, despite being known as a crop that requires an ample amount of available water. It makes sense that radishes fare better in winter in terms of creating a better root. The large roots are where the plant stores energy to go through the winter and hopefully flower in spring. Planting in synchronicity with this natural cycle is much easier than trying to force it into early maturity in spring. So radishes would become mostly a fall crop for me, replacing other plants that die in early midsummer like peas. As for the spinach I was sowing directly, I was hopeful they would sprout and grow better during the cold months. Their favorite temperature range is 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Because we can get several frosts, some down in the teens here, I was wary that they would not survive without the aid of a greenhouse or cold frame. I think that if in the future I decide to build a small greenhouse, I will be able to raise these cold-loving plants like spinach well through deep winter. Time will tell. Soon the garden was experiencing short days with oblique light. Frost blanketed the ground on a regular basis, and most plants died down, except for the hardiest like kale. It would have been too cold for things like lettuce, and it made me ponder, when would be the last opportunity to sow it? I suppose that sowing it directly in late summer and fall is just not practical. It would necessitate at least twice a day watering, something I wasn't going to be doing. Starting them in pots and later transplanting would have been a better approach, as the bigger plants would be established to survive dry weather a bit better with less frequent watering. I could find out next year.